The following is a paid commercial program. Unless otherwise identified, the guests on the program are employees of or otherwise represent the advertiser. The opinions expressed therein are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
Good Sunday morning and welcome to Global News Radio 640 Toronto and Your Life, Your Money. I am Chris Creston, joined as always by Kelvin, the Money Guy. He is one of the top financial advisors in the country and a great guy to get to know, a great guy to listen to on a Sunday morning. So thank you so much for making us part of your weekend. Don't forget, if you've got a question, if you've got anything that you want to know more about that we're talking about here today, you can always reach out to Kelvin. There's a bunch of different ways. You can visit his website, askkelvin.ca. That's askkelvin.ca. And you can call him anytime at 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. And back to his website, askkelvin.ca, you can set up an appointment with him right there on the website. There's a link in the top right corner. Click on that. You select the time and the date that you want Kelvin to give you a call, and there it goes. You've got a call set up with Kelvin, the Money Guy. So anything that's going on in your money life, you want to pick his brain, you want a second opinion, maybe you're going it alone and you want to make sure that you're doing things right. You want to get a good financial advisor, a great financial advisor on your side. Kelvin, the Money Guy, is the guy to call. 416-457-7526. askkelvin.ca. And the guy I'm talking about, why am I talking about the guy? Talk to the guy. Kelvin, how you doing this morning?
Hey, Chris. Good morning. How are you? Everything good?
Great. You know, woken up at the right time, so everything's good.
I was going to say I got up and I wasn't sure if it was 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and thank God I brought a guest with me, which we'll introduce in a second. Otherwise, if I fell asleep, she would have to take over and do the show.
That's a great thing about Kelvin. He's got a great team around him, some of the most talented people in financial planning, in wealth management, and today is no different. We have got a great team member from Kelvin's team right here with us. Maria Flores joins us, Chief Compliance Officer at Cart Wealth Management. Maria, thanks so much for making some time for us.
Hi, Chris. Good morning. I hope you are doing well. And thank you so much, Kelvin, for having me today.
Well, you know, Maria, the reason I decided to have you to come on, not only are a Chief Compliance Officer, but a great help to me. And, you know, we talk in the show, Maria, about money, your life and your money. And Chris and I was talking about RSPs and TFSAs and all this stuff. And last week we did a show on estate planning. And this just is probably the part 2 of estate planning, in the sense that what happens if we not die, because last week was dying, this week is living, but something happens to you and you become incapacitated and you can't make decisions for yourself. And a lot of this, you know, over the last probably 3 months, a lot of clients been telling me that their mom and dad, that they're maybe getting some sign of dementia. They got to sell their house and move in here and there. And there's all this money that they looked after and the risk they took to build their wealth. And now what happens? So I thought to myself, you know, I don't know enough. I only know what I know. And like I say, I try and get other people to come on and talk about these things. So I thought, Maria, if you have time, can you come and join us and talk to us about POAs, which is, you know, power of attorneys and all the other things that we don't know about. So Maria, this show is really about you telling us all these things. So please introduce yourself again and tell us what you know.
Great. Thank you, Kelvin, for this wonderful invitation. And, you know, for those listeners, you know, I'm grateful to be and know Kelvin for the past 10 years. Has been a long journey and a pleasure to actually see, you know, how he has grown his practice. But today's topic, as he mentioned, is the importance of understanding what a power of attorney is, and also the difference between this legal document and a new resource that regulators are basically introducing, known as the trusted contact person. So through this interview, Kelvin, I'm going to be referring POA, which means power of attorney, and TCP as a trusted contact person.
So what is that? What is that TCP? I mean, I know power of attorney. Chris, I'm sure you've heard of wills and power of attorneys and things like that. This TCP seems to be something that caught us by surprise, I would think.
Yeah, you know what? This TCP is not yet in force. Actually, is going to come available as December 31st of 2021. So this is something that, dealers like Car Wealth, alongside with advisors, are working in training advisors in how to utilize this new requirement. So what the TCP means is a trusted contact person. What clients need to do now is think about who can be that person. Someone like a family member, perhaps their spouse, or perhaps their son, the daughter, or even a neighbor. But during this interview, I think you and I were going to talk about the difference about the POA, TCP. What are the things POA can do legally, and what are the things that TCP cannot do legally, and how to remove a TCP. And when you as an advisor, for instance, will call this trusted contact person, because at the end of the day, when you are opening an account, the person that you need to contact is your client.
So you know how we always say, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right?
That's
so what
right.
comes first, the TCP or the POA? I don't know.
You know what? That's a very good question. To tell you the truth, if I were in any of your listeners' shoes, I will put my two affairs in order. The POA is a very, very important document. And let's begin saying that is a legal document, that it will help, to the person appointed to make decisions in your behalf. So let's say, for instance, Kelvin, and let's say I name you as my POA,
Right.
and I get disabled or incapacitated, or for whatever reason I cannot make whether health decisions or financial decisions. You know what my beneficiaries are going to do? They're going to contact you.
Right.
And another example I can give is, this is a real story, okay?
Mhm.
A friend of mine, unfortunately, she got brain tumor.
Oh.
To the point that she went into surgery, and after that she was not capable to make any financial decisions. We went back to trying to locate a POA, a power of attorney, and nothing was there. And you know what makes so difficult is that we gather the kids, and we gather basically the expenses, right? And we try to say, okay, let's pay the bills. We have to pay the rent, we have to pay the utilities, we have to pay the cell phone.
Right.
We decide to start calling each one of them. Nobody want to disclose any information whatsoever.
Really?
And we're at a point that we actually want to pay the bills, right? So we want to make sure things are up to today. Unfortunately, without the POA, there was nothing we could do.
It's like everything else in our business, we always look backwards rather than look, the should have, could have
Yes.
that we talk about, Chris and Maria. We always say, oh, I should have done this, I could have done that. Maybe this is one thing I think, in my opinion, that's really, really important. Everything's important, but this maybe it's more important because you never know, what happens day to day, right? Eh?
And you know what, Kelvin, the mistake that clients make, or people, like common people like ourselves, is that we don't spend the time but making these arrangements. There's one statistic that I was sharing with you. 71% of Canadians don't have a POA.
Wow.
That's a huge number.
Yeah.
71%.
So there's no legal requirement for, say, me to have a power of attorney.
No, Ontario does not require that you as an individual, Chris, have a POA. It's something that you do voluntarily. And in addition to that, you don't need a lawyer. We work with associations that will help. As an advisor, we partner with, lawyers that can actually help us to get a very simple POA. The importance of the POA is while you're still alive. If, God forbid, you're crossing the street, a car hits you, you end up in the hospital, and nobody can make a decision. So there's two differences on the POA. It's for your finances and property. So someone wants to come and talk to Kelvin and withdraw money, for instance, right? Or, for example, you end up in the hospital and the doctor cannot speak with anyone except whoever has the POA on the health because of privacy. Canada protects the privacy of individuals very highly. So because of those requirements, it's so important to have the POA, whether it's in the property or in health.
So, Marie, if I can just ask you, so mentally, incapable mean what? I have a lot of friends like that, but what does that mean?
Well, you know what? That's a funny statement, but because sometimes we kind of freeze, doesn't mean that we're mentally incapable. But that is a really good question, Kelvin. And there are studies that show that 500 Canadians live with dementia nowadays. That's another huge
Say
number.
that number again.
500,000 of Canadians live with dementia.
Wow.
That's a huge number. So to answer your question, we can consider memory loss, forgetting previous instructions, increase of difficulty by completing forms or disclosures, all those type of things, is memory loss.
So let's go delve into that maybe after the break. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, that's great. I'm all ears. I can't wait to find out more about this. I'm so curious because I think there's so much that we don't know about these terms, about a power of attorney. For the longest time, I thought you needed to be a lawyer to be a power of attorney. It's a confusing term. So that we're going to learn so much more as this hour continues here with Maria Flores and Kelvin, the money guy, here on Your Life, Your Money. askkelvin.ca is the website. That's askkelvin.ca. And you can call them anytime, 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. Stay tuned to Global News Radio, 640 Toronto.
You are listening to a paid commercial program. Unless otherwise identified, the guests on the program are employees of or otherwise represent the advertiser. The opinions expressed therein are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
And welcome back to Global News Radio 640 Toronto and Your Life, Your Money. I am Chris Creston, joined as always by Kelvin, the money guy. askkelvin.ca is his website. That's askkelvin.ca, and you can call him anytime at 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. Don't forget, when you go to askkelvin.ca, you can also set up an appointment for a call with Kelvin. You get a complimentary chat with Kelvin by picking the date and the time and that's convenient for you, and you set up that call, and it happens. You get to talk to Kelvin about, maybe it's the normal stuff we talk about when we're talking about investments and RSPs and TFSAs, or maybe it's some of this stuff that we're talking about that we've been covering off over the last number of weeks. And that's some of these other meaty topics today, talking about power of attorney, talking about how the different people that you can have in charge of your, not even your estate, your life, when something happens to you and you're incapacitated and not able to make decisions for yourself. Clearly, I don't know a lot about it. I just said before the break, I thought maybe you had to be a lawyer to be a power of attorney, but our guest, Maria Flores, knows a lot about it, and she's been helping us talk about it. And just before we had to take the break, Maria, you were talking about what it means to be mentally incapacitated and what kind of situation, how many people in Canada are living with that. And you had a big statistic on that. There's a lot of people in Canada living in that condition.
That's right. So we were talking about the mentally incapable, what exactly it means, right? So, sometimes we can even see in a close family member, with a friend, or even with our own clients, when they tend to express confusion or they don't understand certain concepts, and even surprisingly, change of mood or personality. So out of the sudden, Kelvin can be in front of a client and start like cursing or being happy, and out of the sudden Kelvin has to kind of realize something's going on with this particular client. And believe it or not, we live in a society that more and more we see Canadians being affected mentally or even depressed. So it's something that I think advisors such as Kelvin, he's doing a great job by always keeping a big eye in noting down what's going on with their clients.
And it's funny because last week I was reading an article about elderly people, how people are taking advantage of them, and I think this all ties into this discussion this morning. And more when I read articles, Maria, you're the compliance officer here, so you probably see more of this stuff. So that's why this is, I think, more important than anything, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's why I think regulation is changing as well. I mean, it's going to be a big trend in 2022, January 1st, just because, we have seen, as you mentioned, clients getting financial abuse, whether because they have some memory loss. And that's why, the regulators are putting what we spoke before, the trusted contact person as another resource. But before we move into how we can identify clients to help them if there's any financial abuse, I think Chris had a question regarding POAs.
Because that's the thing, because one of the things that I wasn't sure about is what happens to a person if you don't have a power of attorney and you find yourself in that position.
Well, Ontario, in the province of Ontario, they have made some provisions. If someone does not have a POA, they have to actually apply in court for permission to get assigned a representative or guardian. But, at that point, it's too much paperwork, time, and this time that you're not going to get back. And especially if you're trying to help a friend or a family member right in that moment, you start going to be running like a chicken, to tell you the truth, right? So, and I don't want the listeners to be ever in that spot, in that situation, none of us, right? That's why we're taking the time this morning, Kelvin and I, to talk about the importance of having your affairs in order. And, another thing I want to mention, the audience know, is that the POA is a very easy document that does not need to get registered. But maybe you guys wonder how a POA can become legal.
Right.
Yeah, that's
right?
the thing. Yeah, if it doesn't have to be registered, can you just sort of write it on the back of a napkin and sign your name to it? Or how do we make this an official document?
Well, hopefully you don't have to go to that resource, use a napkin, Chris. But you know what? I have seen and I have heard, in the past, people have made POAs in a blank piece of paper, put in their wishes, especially who is the appointed person. That's the important thing. You're not dead. You're incapable, right? And this person will only be appointed as, to handle your affairs only when you become incapable. And it has to be proven by a doctor. So to answer the question how this document becomes legal is when two individuals witness the document. Okay, two different individuals. And these individuals cannot be your spouse and cannot be your children. Okay, so grab your neighbor, Chris. Hopefully you don't use that napkin, but grab your neighbor and another neighbor and then get those witnesses.
And that's a good thing you brought, because I was just going to ask you, so what if Chris says he's a POA and then I say I'm the POA?
Okay, that's a really good question, Kelvin. So as an advisor, if your client comes to you and said, Kelvin, this is my power of attorney, make sure it's dated and you go over that document with your client, because you're right. We have situations in the dealer where we have 2 or 4 or 3 kids and each one of them have the last copy of the POA.
Yeah.
Right? So what you need to do in that case is, at the end of the day, who's going to give you that legal document is your client. It doesn't matter how many other POA shows up, is your client. And make sure the moment you identify there is a POA on the account, make sure you always bring in your annual reviews and say, show me the last copy of your POA. Or is this the last copy is still active?
It just seems like there's always all these changes that are happening, and we as advisors really have to go beyond, the markets going up and down. I think we have to look at more of, like the show says, about your life and money. And that's why, Maria, I'm glad you decided to come on and chat about this.
Well, thank you again, Kelvin. And you know what? This topic, I think, is very interesting. We could have spent the whole morning with Chris talking about it, because I think, as I mentioned, 71% of Canadians don't have a POA. So right now, for those listeners, talk to your advisor and go through these topics. And if you don't have an advisor, I encourage you to talk to Kelvin. And even if you want a second opinion, we're happy to assist you. We're happy to go through your affairs and ensure. As I mentioned, my friend, real life, did not have a POA, and we went through hassle just to pay the bill.
Wow. And Maria, you were talking a few minutes ago about having the witnesses. What kind of people? You were saying it can't be the spouse, and it can't be your spouse, and it can't be your child. So it's got to be a third party who's witnessing this and signing off on it. So it's got to be somebody who is Like is it like a passport where you need a doctor's note or a dentist or someone to sign
Yeah,
it? Or
what I will recommend is someone that knows you well, like a friend, a close friend that has your interest at first, right? Because you cannot appoint I mean, you can appoint your neighbor if that person is your friend, but you cannot just appoint any person that may don't care about you. Because, for instance, if you appoint someone to run your investments or to sell your primary property, you want to make sure that person is not going to take your money and run. You want to make
right.
sure that person will protect you, because God forbid you end up in a long-term care facility, and you want to make sure that the money that you invest your entire life, is going to go to pay your monthly expenses in that facility.
Right.
So it has to be someone that you trust.
Right. And you hear about that where there's a elderly person who's been sort of taken advantage of by their power of attorney, and all of a sudden someone's bleeding them dry while they're sitting at home eating cat food or something. Not to paint too horrible a picture of it, but that's a pretty terrible situation to be in. And I'm wondering if you've got a power of, or if you don't have a power of attorney and something happens to you, like how is it, you become mentally incapable to, deal with your own affairs? Is it possible for someone else to be appointed as a power of attorney? And how does that happen when you're not there to sign it, or not, of sound mind to sign it?
Yeah, so in that case, that's why the regulators provide another provision called the trusted contact person, and is known as the TCP. So this document is going to come in force, as I mentioned before, December 31st of 2021. And by 2022, dealers like CAR are going to be looking and, encouraging advisors as a best practice to ask the question, do you have someone that you trust? Do you have someone that, God forbid, I have to contact because, I don't know, you disappear? So I'm going to put you an example. Let's say you're my client, Chris, okay? And I know you for the past 5 years. And you and we know each other. I know you well. I know what you like, what you dislike. I know you're going to write your POA in a napkin. I know all those details, okay? And
hopefully it'll be a clean napkin.
Yes, hopefully it's a clean one. So let's say you end up going somewhere for a trip and you never came back. And I start worrying because you told me by this day I will be back, and Maria, you and I were going to get together and review my finances. And the date came, I call you, left messages, you never return my phone, my call back, right? So what happens at that point? Let's say you appoint Kelvin as the TCP. I will call Kelvin and say, hey, Kelvin, do you know what's going on with Chris? I haven't heard from him, okay? And then Kelvin said, well, you know what? He decided to extend the trip, but he's doing well. So then I will have peace of mind. I will maybe call next time and keep an eye on you, right? But now, what advisors need to be cautious with the TCP is how much information to disclose to that individual, because it's not a POA, okay?
Right.
So the advisor like Kelvin cannot, me as the advisor in your case, I cannot say, Kevin, by the way, Chris' investments went down or up by 20%. Or this is how much, Chris' account has currently in his, non-registered accounts. So advisors have to watch how much information they provide to the TCP. The TCP is a resource in case something that you feel is not going properly as an advisor.
So the TCP can't tell me as the advisor, oh, I think this investment is too risky for this client. Things like that. Can they do that?
No. You have to always, Kelvin, have almost like a barrier, right? I mean,
Right.
The TCP is a resource because let's say, for instance, another example very common right now, Chris, is romance scam. And I don't know if you know what it is, right? So let's say we have a client approaching Kelvin and says, Kelvin, I want you please to redeem $30,000. But Kelvin knew that this client, finds someone online, and they've been dating online, and out of the sudden the person is asking for money overseas. Very common scam happening this time, and especially going to Christmas as well. We have to keep an eye on that. And Kelvin started questioning these redemptions. So let's say the TCP was, actually you can appoint your spouse, you can appoint your kids as the TCP. Kelvin calls the TCP and said, hey, so-and-so called me, asked me for $30,000. It's not according to the plan. Like, what's going on? So the TCP can say, you know what, he start or she start dating so-and-so overseas. Let's keep an eye. Of course, at the end of the day, it's the client's money, but as an advisor, you want to protect. right? And you want to keep on the loop those loved ones that the client has assigned them as a trusted contact person.
So that's a really interesting that you talked about, Maria. Maybe with all this internet dating and things like that with older people and so on, maybe after the break, we maybe elaborate a tiny bit on that, maybe?
Yeah,
Chris?
we can talk about financial exploitation, part of it.
Terrific. Awesome. We'll talk more about that on the other side of the break here as Your Life, Your Money continues on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. Don't forget to visit Kelvin's website, askkelvin.ca. That's askkelvin.ca. Ask KELVIN.ca. We're talking to Kelvin, the money guy, and Maria Flores, who is Chief Compliance Officer at CART Wealth Management. And thank you again, Maria, for joining us here today. A whole lot more with both of them coming up on Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
You are listening to a paid commercial program. Unless otherwise identified, the guests on the program are employees of or otherwise represent the advertiser. The opinions expressed therein are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
And welcome back to Your Life, Your Money right here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. I am Chris Creston, joined as always by Kelvin, the money guy. And today we're joined by a special guest, Maria Flores, Chief Compliance Officer at CART Wealth Management, is here today as well. And she is one of the people that Kelvin trusts with all of the information when it comes to power of attorney and now trusted contact person. TCP is a new term that I've just learned today, and I hope you're all tuned in and learning about it here as well, because it's important stuff. Knowing we know a lot of people don't have a power of attorney. Hey, I don't have a power of attorney. I don't have a trusted contact person. I've got trusted people you can contact, but nothing official. So that's why we're here to learn about what you can do to make sure that your affairs are in order in case something bad happens, in case you're incapacitated, in case God forbid you go missing. Someone's got to be in charge of your finances, in charge of making those important decisions for you when you can't. And that's what we're hoping to connect you with Kelvin to try and build that for yourself. If you want to reach out to Kelvin, askkelvin.ca is his website. It's a great place to start. askkelvin.ca. You can contact him there. You can listen to past shows, and you can also click on the link to book an appointment with Kelvin. You pick the time and the date, and boom, you've got a call with Kelvin, the money guy. And you can talk about this stuff. You can talk about other things to do with your money life. If you want to talk about the Habs, you can talk about the Habs. But why are you talking about the Habs? 416-457-7526 is also his number if you want to reach out to him. Now, Maria, we were talking about this TCP, this trusted contact person, and what happens in a lot of situations. We were talking about romance scams just before the break. And I know that these are happening all over the place. As you brought it up, I remembered I had a friend whose grandmother is involved in a romance scam. And well, he thinks it's a romance scam, right? We don't know what's happening in someone's heart, but there's a younger guy who is dating a very senior lady who is not always has her wits about her, but there's no sort of document or anything to sort of stop this from happening. So, my friend's mother keeps calling her mother and saying, why are these checks going out to this guy? She says, okay, I'm putting a stop to it. It's not going to happen anymore. A few months later, checks are going back out to this guy again. And my heart breaks for this family who's going through this. And I worry too. What happens now? Is there a paper trail where this guy has been dependent on grandma for so long that, Romeo, if grandma passes away, is Romeo going to cash in on her estate?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm sorry to hear that, Chris. But as we mentioned it before, this romance scam is something that is happening across the country, and this is a great opportunity to talk about it. And as a family members, of course, we care about our parents, we care about our grandparents, and in this case, God forbid something happens to grandma. If she does not have a proper will, in this case with, who the money is going to go to, if there is proof that this relationship was going and this guy wants to come and go to the court and spend the money here to get that estate, it could happen. But, one of the things that, dealers and Kelvin, are always doing and keeping an eye is of this type of behaviors. Because at the end of the day, we understand grandma's money is grandma's money. She worked hard for that money. She's entitled to do whatever she wants to do with the money. Leave it to the lover, the Romeo in this case, or to the family members. The important thing is that as an advisor, in this case, Kelvin has to put an eye on, notes, what's going on, how many frequencies, the redemptions are happening, and, paper trail. At the end of the day, paper trail is the most important thing. But if you want to ask me, Chris, how to stop this, the only person is grandma, by saying no more redemptions from my account. Unfortunately, she's the owner of the account. And as an advisors, we will basically just continue doing the redemptions. It's her money, right?
Right. So I mean, that's a good answer for that question. But what I want to ask you, Marie, before I know our time is getting limited, is that like I said before, the chicken or the egg, like what comes first? Do you get a TCP and then a POA, or a POA and then I don't...
You know what is funny? Because I can tell you the chicken came first, then you're going to say, no, Maria, the egg came first, right? So we're going to agree to disagree.
Okay.
So in this case, how about clients who are listening, or, the listeners overall get both documents? Because the POA doesn't cost you a thing.
Right.
The TCP is a conversation between the client and the advisor.
So these conversations, I mean, I think we should have with our financial advisors. Like I always say, go to your advisor first and have a chat about these things. And if you don't have one, give me a call. But again, like everything else, all this power of attorney and wills and estate planning and life insurance, like everything is important. And I think it's a conversation that we need to have with all of our clients and on a go forward, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, keep an eye on family members as well. Keep an eye on those vulnerable clients, your older clients. Right. The scams. Then the new one that is going to come, but that comes every year, is the CRA. They call you because you need to pay them money, otherwise you're going to end up in jail. I get lots of those calls. Yeah. But nonetheless, because we're in the business, we're educated on the field, we know what to do with those phone calls. But our senior clients, our vulnerable clients, unfortunately, they get trapped, right?
So in a minute, can you summarize what are some of the warning signs?
You know what? That's a great for financial exploitation. Clearly example what is going on with grandma currently. Right. Another example is that out of the sudden, this clients or people, they become isolated. They don't want to, be part of the family or go out with their friends. Right. Some of them show signs of anxiety because there is a pressure coming from somewhere else. There is a limited knowledge about their investments or circumstances of what's going on. And Kelvin, don't be surprised if any of your senior client comes with a boyfriend or girlfriend 20 or 40 younger, 40 years younger than them. Right. And out of the sudden, they want to be part of those meetings. So that's another sign that we have to keep an eye. And you know what? Withdrawal of accounts. That's another one, big one. Yeah.
Good.
And we'll come back and talk a little bit more about power of attorney and trusted contact person as the show continues here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. I'm Chris Crescent, joined as always by Kelvin, the money guy, and the other voice you hear is Maria Flores, who is Chief Compliance Officer at CART Wealth Management, who has been kind enough to join us. And to, honestly, Maria, thank you so much. We're learning so much here today, and we'll learn some more on the other side of the break here as Your Life, Your Money continues. askkelvin.ca is the website. That's askkelvin.ca. Stay tuned to Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
You are listening to a paid commercial program. Unless otherwise identified, the guests on the program are employees of or otherwise represent the advertiser. The opinions expressed therein are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for making us part of your Sunday morning. We really appreciate it, and I hope you appreciate everything that Kelvin and his guest Maria Flores is bringing to the table here today as we talk about a power of attorney, talk about the things that you need to know to get your affairs in order, to make sure if you find yourself mentally incapable of making decisions, whether you find yourself incapacitated, missing, whatever it is, you have the right person in charge to make sure that your affairs are set up so that you can move forward, so that your finances can continue, so that you're not left with someone, with no one in control. And that's important, especially in this day and age. Things can change so fast. People take advantage of people, and that's something we were talking about. And I've got some questions for Maria about that in just a second. Askkelvin.ca is the website. That's askkelvin.ca. And you can call them anytime at 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. The Maria I was referring to is Maria Flores, Chief Compliance Officer at Cart Wealth Management. Maria, thanks again for joining us today. Maria, I have a question. We were talking about romance scams, and we were talking about specifically, elderly people who find someone who's now taking advantage of them. What about someone who has a child who isn't fully mentally capable of making their own decisions, and they fall victim to a romance scam? Is there something that you can do for your kids in that situation to make sure that there's, some kind of control over those finances?
Yeah, definitely, Chris. And that's a very good question. Another sample that we can talk about, that it's very common. As parents, we want to protect our kids. And for whatever reason, we're dealing with and caring for a person that will become eventually a young adult that is not sound in mind, in the sense that cannot make decisions because there's some disability. For those, the same principle applies. That individual need to have a POA, because at the end of the day, both parents are going to get older, and eventually, God forbid, they're going to pass away. So because of those reasons, parents need to prepare those individuals as well to make sure there is a guardian, there is a POA appointed, because at the end of the day, the money from their parents will go to this kid. And then if something happened, this person will need to withdraw those finances as well. And another important statistic that I came across is that 1 in 5 Canadians have experienced caring for someone. So at the end of the day, having these documents, such as the POA, it's very crucial for your own self. And if you have basically a disabled children, are also important to have in order. Yeah.
In the time that we have left, Maria, maybe we can go over the difference. We've been throwing around these terms: the POA, the TCP, the power of attorney, and the trusted contact person. What's the difference, just to reiterate to our listeners who maybe just tuned in?
You know what? The POA, the power of attorney, is a legal document that it will come in effect if the person gets mentally or physically disabled and is not capable to make decisions. Now, the person that draws this document can draw into 2 different ones. One for property, meaning to sell your principal residence, or they can do and take decisions on the investments. Now, the other important one that, we talked briefly is your health, right? If you end up in the hospital and the doctors need to make decisions whether to go for surgery, or whether, unfortunately, they come to a state that the brain is not responding and you need to unplug the person. Very important to have those affairs in order, because at the end of the day, the person is not conscious to make that decision. So that's the POA. And something very important for those listeners to know is that the POA is legal document, but you don't need to be a lawyer. You don't need to register this document. And you can actually draw your wish as who you appoint the POA to act legally in your affairs with 2 witnesses. Make sure the people that you choose is people that actually have your interest at first, because you don't want, God forbid, those people taking advantage of you while you are not capable to make those decisions. And the TCP, the new provision, the trusted contact person, is more a point of contact for advisors if they suspect there is some financial abuse, or they suspect something is not going on right with the client. So the advisors can contact those individuals to inquire, hey, what's going on with John Smith? Is he okay? Is he stable? What's going on?
It's another good reason to have a real human being financial advisor on your team. Look, it's not just someone trading your stocks and bonds and, investing in your RSP. There's a whole team of people around a guy like Kelvin who can help you out. Like Maria, it's amazing, the wealth of knowledge you've just dropped on us that I don't know anything about. And, if I'm going online to some robot advisor, I might be able to see lines in a graph go up and down, but I'm not going to have this kind of contact. I'm not going to have this kind of information. And all of these things could just fall by the wayside. I can play a game on my phone, and that's basically what it is, playing a game with your money, because you're not going to have that kind of information and this kind of knowledge and know-how on your side.
And that's why I say, Chris, we talk about RSPs, TFSAs, that kind of stuff. The POA and the TCP is just as important as everything else. So you can't get this from your robo-advisor. I say people need to sit down, and again, we're heading into a new year. Do some planning. Sit down in November, December. Well, November, so enjoy your Christmas, but do some planning for the future and look at your POA, look at your TCP, your trusted contact person. Review what you're doing, look at your life, look at your money, and plan out for the new year, I would say. So thanks, Maria. I'm glad you came in. Like Chris said, I didn't know a lot of this stuff. So thanks.
Well, I'm glad to be part of the team, and Chris, thank you so much. Great questions, and once again, talk to your advisor. That's the most important thing. And if you are updating your POA, make sure you give the last copy to the advisor. And if you don't have an advisor, talk to Kelvin, or if you want a second opinion, Kelvin's here to listen your questions as well.
Great stuff, Maria. That's Maria Flores, Chief Compliance Officer at Cart Wealth Management. And thank you, Kelvin, the Money Guy. Thanks again for another great Sunday morning. Really appreciate it.
Great, Chris. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Don't forget, askkelvin.ca is the website. That's askkelvin.ca. You can book an appointment there right on his website, or you can call him anytime at 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. Stay tuned to Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
The preceding was a paid commercial program. Unless otherwise identified, the guests on the program are employees of or otherwise represent the advertiser. The opinions expressed therein are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.